All right, folks, you've been hammering me about this one for a while, and guess what? The stars aligned and we made it happen. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Elon, or as many of you might know him, Saxy. What's happening, brother? How are you feeling today?
Well, Joe, you know how it is. Always buried in work. Lately, it seems my mind's more on the campaign than my actual companies. But honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
All right, before we get deep into character stuff, I've got to touch on something. X? What's the story behind changing Twitter to X, man?
Well, the primary idea was to capture the quirks and imperfections in all of us that really define who we are. But honestly, at the end of the day, I did it because I could.
And isn't that the truth? Okay, moving on. Let's talk Saxiron. Why an artificer, man? What drew you to that class?
As you might expect, I find it hard to switch off that engineering and innovation mindset, even in my downtime. When I came across the artificer class, it just clicked. It felt like a fusion of my real-world ventures, from Tesla's tech to SpaceX's innovations, and even Neuralink's advancements. In a sense, playing Saxiron allows me to channel those passions into a fantasy realm. It's both an escape and a connection to my everyday world.
That's wild, man. But thinking about it, in the day-to-day world you're operating in, do you ever come across something Saxiron's doing in-game and think, hey, maybe we should give that a shot in real life? Or maybe the other way around, where your real-world projects inspire some crazy in-game creations?
Yeah, well, initially I thought I'd be pulling more from the real world into the game. But, you know, recently, especially with how Saxiron's armor has been evolving, I've actually started toying with a prototype, sort of Iron Man-esque. I think it might really have potential.
Whoa. So, knowing how you operate, you'll probably have that thing ready in no time. Think you'd be up for bringing it by the studio when it's done? Maybe let me try it out?
Yeah, for sure. I'm aiming to have it ready in, like, the next couple of weeks. I want to take it for a test flight myself first. I've tried getting clearance from the FAA, but they're, you know, not exactly getting back to me. So I thought, why not? I'll just go for it.
Dude, that's insane. I'm telling you, the day you test it, you better soar right past my place. Can you imagine? I'd be high as a kite, just chilling, and suddenly there's Elon zipping by in the sky. I'd be like, what the actual fuck is happening? That'd be nuts. So, which mark is this thing? Like Iron Man suits?
Mark, what do you mean, Joe?
Jamie, can you pull that up real quick? You know, the different marks of Iron Man suits. See? Look at that, man. I mean, fuck. He's got a ton of these things, and they look badass.
I think I'm aiming for the Mark II to, you know, start with. The Mark I, well, I don't see it really fitting the vision I have in mind. But yeah, looking ahead, it's entirely possible that I might develop an entire series of them.
That's awesome, dude. All right, diving deeper into Saxiron, I don't want to pry too much into the backstory because I get the sense you want to unfold that in the campaign. But can you give us just a little teaser of Saxiron's life before he teamed up with Tronald and the crew? And speaking of Tronald, how'd that whole dynamic come about? You two had some serious tension at the beginning, but now it's shaping up to be like this brotherly bond. What's the story there?
Yeah, I do have plans, you know, for Saxiron's backstory to sort of unveil it during the right moments in the campaign. Tried to actually a few sessions back, but got cut off by the captain, which was unfortunate. But yeah, when the moment feels right, it'll come out. Saxiron has had his share of darkness, similar to Tronald and Raarh, though he might not readily show it. There's this deep-seated mission he's on. I believe he'll share it when the time feels right. About Tronald, well, we should probably dive deeper when Donald's around. But I came across him in this quaint fishing village. He seemed lost, likely from his memory loss, and was just challenging everyone around, proclaiming his power and such. It was quite the sight. I intervened, sort of offered him a chance to come along with me. But yeah, that's a glimpse into how we met. We'll dive deeper when Donald's here. Our dynamic, it's evolved, you know. At first, we clashed a lot because, well, we're almost like reflections of each other, similar, but also very different. That led to some tension. But as time went on, and I got to know him, that bond, it grew stronger. It's like, we're more like brothers now, rather than two, strangers at odds. We still have our moments, but it's more brotherly now.
Man, that's some deep stuff right there. But shifting gears a bit, if you had to pinpoint like the absolute funniest moment from this whole campaign, and then maybe one that was just a total disaster, what comes to mind?
For the disaster, I'd say, well, without giving too much away since it's from a recent episode and not everyone might be caught up, I'll go back a bit. Gilro's loss was deeply impactful. None of us really anticipated that magnitude of a loss so early on. It kind of, set a precedent for how fragile our journey might be. As for the funniest, there's a lot really. But if I have to pick, it might be early on when Raarh, well, he had that encounter with the bear, and it kind of went for his asshole. That was something else.
Dude, that was a fucking riot. But honestly, it was you guys losing it that made it even more hilarious. Jamie, can you pull that up? I've got to hear that again. Out of nowhere, a colossal matted creature charges out of the fog. What's your AC, Raarh?
For fuck's sake, 15.
Not high enough. All you see is a big fucking giant bear head clamped down on your dick and your asshole.
Fuck me!
Oh, shit.
Oh my lords, protect me.
And it starts shaking its head wildly. That's 12 points of piercing damage alongside 5 points of necrotic damage from its undead form.
Fuck me!
And with that, I'm going to need everyone to roll initiative. Dude, every time I hear that, it kills me. But when it came to Gilro's demise, the crew seemed split. Half of them were cracking up over chucking Gilro's body into that fucking tree, while Saxiron was clearly gutted. I get where Saxiron was coming from, but what about you, Elon? How did you feel about that whole situation?
Oh, yeah, it was absolutely hilarious, Joe. I had to try really hard to stay in character for that one.
Yeah, I thought that would have been the case. Fast forward a few sessions, and when you guys headed out of Rick's place, Gilro's body was just gone. Considering all the wild stuff that's been unfolding lately, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I have a feeling that's going to circle back around to haunt us. Given the, chain of events recently, it wouldn't be a stretch to think Gilro might return. And considering the way the rest of the party handled his demise, I wouldn't be surprised if he came back quite pissed off, to put it mildly.
Guess time will tell on that one. I guess that brings us to Kobe. Did that whole situation blindside you? Would you label it as betrayal, or any thoughts or hunches on what went down there?
Yeah, so the whole Kobe situation, it's nuanced, right? To just slap a label of betrayal on it might be a bit simplistic. We had only known him for a brief time, and perhaps the mistake was entrusting someone so quickly. I'd actually put that more on Tronald than anyone else. I've always had, certain reservations about Kobe from the get-go. But diving into what actually transpired between him and Tronald's primal form, Lord Tanavir, and that arcane focus, I think there's a lot more layers there, deeper complexities that we're yet to uncover.
You think there's a chance you'll cross paths with Kobe again in the future? And man, if that happens, how do you think you'd handle it?
Well, considering, that we're actively searching for him, I think it's quite probable that we'll run into Kobe again. As for how I'd react, I believe that's really Tronald's call. He's been deeply impacted by all this. It was his possession, after all, and his past, and how it crossed with Kobe's. But if Tronald decides on a particular course of action, I'll absolutely support him. Now Kobe, as a guest player, he was interesting. It wasn't just his naive demeanor, but that kind of goofy, almost simple way he talked. It might have made us a bit complacent. And that's perhaps why he managed to, I guess, slip under even Tronald's radar.
Speaking about guest players, what's your take on Captain Jake? How do you feel Johnny Depp brought him to life?
Captain Jake, he was quite an addition. I think everyone, including myself, kind of hoped he'd be around longer. but understanding, Johnny's quite busy these days, dealing with a lot. So having him even for a short span was really something. I'm fairly certain we'll cross paths with him again in the future.
Man, I've been getting a ton of questions about Doge. What's the deal there? Yeah, we know he died, but where's the comeback? People are itching to know. You got plans to bring Doge back into the mix or what?
Well, yeah, I definitely want to bring Doge back at some point. The main issue was monetary, really. And when I do bring him back, I'd like him to be, better equipped, more advanced than before. I'll need to collaborate with you on that, but just like with my armor, I have some pretty cool ideas for how he can be integrated into the game.
All right, man. One last thing before you head off to play real-life Tony Stark. Who do you think would take the cake in a one-on-one showdown, Tronald or Raarh?
That's not a straightforward question. You see, there are many factors, like the environment, the situation, their state of mind. But based on how each reacts in, different scenarios, I'd lean towards Tronald. He's got a lot of utility and ways to keep Raarh at a distance. But if Raarh manages to close that distance and Tronald can't create space, then Raarh could really lay down some damage. Still, considering all of Tronald's abilities, his tricks and tactics, I'd say he'd probably manage to keep Raarh at bay and whittle him down. So, I guess I'd put my money on Tronald.
All right, Elon, my man. Thanks for coming on, brother. Always a trip having you in here, man. We've got to do this again. Maybe bring in another guest, or hell, get Gordon, Donald, or even Miley up in here. Just mix it up and have a wild conversation. Looking forward to Friday, dude. It's going to be a blast, I'm sure of it.